Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Young from the Fort Gordon Satellite Campus, and what I'd like to do is give you an overview of F100. First, let's look at the Blackboard homepage. So you go to Blackboard, go to the F100 lessons, and this is where you'll see the lessons listed. The starts with F100 block advanced sheet will be found here, and just this will cover the whole block. And then you'll see one of these for each class. This will be a link. Click on it, open up, and I'll actually open this up for you here in a second. The other thing I want to point out to you is the staff group area. That's likely where your instructor will post slides, additional reference material for you. So that will also be very useful to you for F100. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this link right here, how the Army runs. So we've opened that up. You'll notice the block advanced sheet is found there. That'll be a Word document, and we'll look at that in a subsequent slide. The other thing you'll notice, the assessment plan and then the case study writing guide. Those are both links open as Word documents. With respect to the assessment plan, we'll look at this in more detail in subsequent slides, but you notice you have two case study azimuth checks, 5% each for a total of 10% of your grade. You'll do a written case study. The exact number of pages you'll get guidance on, but that'll constitute 50% of your grade. You'll present that case study, one slide, 3 to 5 minute brief in front of your classmates, 15%. So between the two azimuth checks, the written case study, and presenting it, that's 75% of your grade. The remaining 25% of your grade will be based on resource management Blackboard quiz. All right, so let's look at the block advance sheet for the F100 block. You'll see here the intent behind the block, but I just really want to direct your attention here. The course focuses on following the force management model. I'm going to show you in subsequent slides what that force management model contains and why it's relevant. The other thing I'll point out, the Army Force Management School at Belvoir, they're the proponent for the force management model as well as the War College. And so we'll take a look at their webpage here in a subsequent slide. So let's just take a look at how the core curriculum is going to flow. Basically 14 weeks. You guys are not doing the X100, but starts off with block of instruction, C100. In C100, you'll learn about critical and creative thinking. You'll learn about briefing techniques, writing, and you'll also do some individual assessments, Nelson Denny, Myers-Briggs, learning style inventory to help you develop your individual development plan and help you learn more about yourself. So that's the foundations block. Then you'll notice C200 in purple. That's your joint instruction department. DJMO will be instructing that, and that'll be the strategic level. C300, again, DJMO, focusing on unified action. Then your DTAC instructor will do Army Tactics, or C400. And then finally, C500, Operational Art Joint Planning, again with your DJMO instructor. You notice here, these are your parallels. So here's F100, taught by DLRO, H100, taught by Department of Military History, and then your leadership instruction. Let's just take a look at the F100. Normally, you'll have one F100 class per week. And so you might say, well, why don't we just do F100 in a block like you do up here? I think you'll find that it's better that if it's give you time to digest it, as well as it'll be reinforced by what you're doing in other blocks of instruction. So again, typically one class per week. with respect to the assessments, in F103, you'll have your first azimuth check on your case study, 5% of your grade. Tentatively F106, you'll have your second azimuth check, your second 5% for your case study. In F108, you'll turn in that case study for 50% of your grade. And then in F110, F111, you will do your 3 to 5 minute briefing on your case study for 15%. So that case study, again, between the 10%, the 50%, and the 15%, 75% of your grade. And then somewhere in here, you'll have a quiz on resource management, Blackboard quiz for the other 25% of your grade. So those are the assessments and the blocks of instruction over time for F100. In the next slide, we'll drill down into what's contained in each one of these F100. So F101, a 4-hour block, and it will include a case study on Vietnam. Why Vietnam? Well, it was largely counterinsurgency operations, and we had to transition the Army from Vietnam for large-scale combat. In that case, the Warsaw Pact, Soviet Union. And so there's a lot of parallels there. So that's a case study rolled up in the F101 block. F102, you'll look at JSIDS, capability development, 2-hour block of instruction. F103, 4-hour block of instruction. You'll look at the defense acquisition system and the big 5 Army systems that were used to build the Army of Excellence and eventually win the Gulf War. F104 will develop organizational requirements, 2-hour block of instruction. In F105, you'll look at determining organizational authorizations, total Army analysis, 4-hour block, and you'll have a case study on the Army of Excellence. F106, 4-hour block of instruction, looking at the Army Force Integration process, as well as a case study on Desert Storm. F107, you'll look at the DoD Decision Support System of planning, programming, budget, and execution. F108, 4-hour block, and there may be a case study in that as well. F109, 2-hour block. And let me just say here, these two, F108, F109, may be modified or reversed to help better flow the curriculum. You'll get more guidance on that. F110 is an operational contract support class, and you'll also potentially be presenting your case studies there, as well as in F111. So that's the little bit of a detailed look at the blocks. I mentioned the force previously. I'll show you how those lay out across time. This just shows you a detailed on your assessments. So again, your first azimuth check in F103, 5%. Second azimuth check, F106, second 5%. So between the two of them, 10%. F108, turn in your paper, 50% of your grade. F111, F110, you'll do your case study presentation, 15% of your grade. So that case study, again, 75% of the grade. Resource management, you'll do a Blackboard quiz, 25% of your grade. Okay, so that's the assessments. You know, remember the block advance sheet said basically we're teaching you the force management model. So this is the Army's force management model. I encourage you to have this when you're doing your classes with your instructor. Have it out. It will help you visualize the systems and processes contained within it. I'm just going to go ahead and give you a quick overview of the force with respect to classes. So for F101, you'll be looking at how strategy drives the force management process. You'll look at it, national security strategy. Obviously, the executive branch produces it. You'll look at the national defense strategy produced by the SecDef. You'll look at the national military strategy produced by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And again, in F101, you'll do that post-Vietnam case study. In F102, you'll be looking at JSIDs. F103, you'll look at the Defense Acquisition System, and again have that case study on the Big Five. For F104, you'll look at developing organizational requirements, 2-hour block of instruction. For F105, you'll look at determining organizational authorizations and total Army analysis. F106, you'll look at the Army process of force integration. And let me just say briefly, that's taking people and equipment, merging them together to form trained and ready units to provide those to the combatant commanders. So F106, the force integration process. For F107, we'll go back and look at planning, programming, budget, and execution. For F108, F109, it'll be resource management. F110 will be operational contract support. And then finally, you'll present your case studies. Okay, so those are the blocks across the force management model. And again, let me just walk you through the force management model real quickly. You notice it starts with strategy, national security strategy, national defense strategy, national military strategy. And the Army takes that and creates the 5-part Army plan. You'll get more detail about all that in F101. F102, developing capabilities. That is JSIDS, one of the DoD decision support systems. So it starts with strategy, develop concepts, how we want to operate in the future. And in order to figure out what gaps we have in executing that concept, we'll do capability-based assessment. And it will result in .mil PFP outputs. Okay, if it's a material solution, leads you down to the Defense Acquisition System. Notice that material block is in green. Defense Acquisition System is down here in green. If it's an organizational solution, it will lead us into the pink. We've got to design that organization, develop force design update. You'll get more about that in great detail. We're going to develop organizational models where we do TOEs. Phase 4 of the 5-phase force development plan will do determining authorizations, total Army analysis, output of which is the R-struck and the POM force. Then ultimately, we've got to document those organizations in the form of MTOs and TDAs, which is the Army's force structure. And we've got to provide people and equipment to man those units. And ultimately, this process of force integration results in trained and ready units to provide to the combatant commanders. And so, in essence, that's how we're going to walk through the force management model. Why focus on systems and processes? Well, in your core instruction, C100, you're going to talk about the attributes necessary for a leader: character, presence, and intellect. We'll talk about those competencies: leads, develops, and achieves. So those attributes and competencies are going to allow you to be a successful leader. As a company grade, you were down here primarily performing direct leadership. Well, now as organizational level leaders, you're going to be developing those skills necessary for the field grade. But you notice that organizational leadership is tied with a systems and processes perspective. And so there are several processes and systems you're going to learn here. The military decision-making process, the joint planning process, the force development process, the force integration process, the joint capability integration development system, planning, program, and budget execution system, and the defense acquisition system. So again, you're going to want to master those systems and processes that are covered in CGSOC Common Core. So this diagram here is from How the Army Runs Handbook. You notice it starts with capability development. Also, JSIDS, one of the DoD systems. And so up here you'll see this is all about strategy, concepts, how we're going to operate in the future. We're going to use capability-based assessment to solve it. If it's a material solution, we're going to go down here and use the defense acquisition system. If it's an organizational solution, we're going to go through the 5 phases of the force development process. Phase 1 being develop capabilities. Phase 2 be designing organizations. We'll develop organizational models, determine authorizations, which includes TAA and PPBE. We'll document those organizations in the form of MTOs and TDAs. Again, that produces the Army's force structure. And then we've got to man and equip it. So let's look at force development. 5-phase process, force development process. And I'd encourage you, go ahead and just number those on your force management model. There's 5 phases of force development process, output of which is the Army's force structure. Material development is done through the defense acquisition system, one of the DoD systems you're going to talk about. And then finally, force integration. That is merging people and equipment together to form trained and ready units to provide to the combatant commanders. Force integration process. So the 3 DoD decision support systems. In F102, you'll talk about JSIDS. In F103, you'll talk about DAS. And then F107, we'll talk about PPBE. So there's the 3 DoD systems. Let's look at them on the force management model. JSIDS, also phase 1 of the 5-phase force development process. The defense acquisition system. And then finally, PPBE, found in phase 4 of the 5-phase force development process. And that's how we'll talk about them in over classes. F102, F103, and then F107. Okay, the 5-phase force development process. Look at those 5 phases. And again, I encourage you to number them on your force management model. Develop capabilities, or JSIDS. Design organizations. Then we're going to talk about the unit reference sheet, force design update. Phase 3, develop organizational models, focus on the TOE, BOIP. In phase 4, focus on total Army analysis. It's output of the Army structure memorandum and the program objective memorandum. We'll also talk about PPBE. And then finally, phase 5 of the 5-phase force development process is documenting those organizations in the form of MTOs and TDAs. You may prefer to look at it linearly. Another handout we'll give you is the 5 phases of the force development process. So here you see phase 1, develop capabilities, the players, the inputs, and the outputs for each phase. Phase 2, designing the organizations, the inputs, players, the inputs, the outputs, etc. Phase 3, 4, 5, and so on. So that is just a linear view of those 5 phases of the force development process. And again, this is another handout you can download or your instructor will provide. So again, let's just go over the force management model, developing capabilities, also phase 1 of the 5-phase force development process. Here you see the 5 phases. Again, the purpose of these 5 phases is to produce the Army's force structure in the form of MTOs and TDAs. For material development, that's the defense acquisition system. And then finally, the force integration process, Army process of merging people and equipment together to provide trained and ready units to combatant commanders. That's where we are manning and equipping that force structure that was authorized in phase 5 of the 5-phase force development process. So that's the force management model in a nutshell. Again, let's just look at those 3 DoD systems, JSIDS, DAS, and then PPBE. All right, and again, that is the process. This is the Army's Force Management School webpage. There's the URL right there. You'll notice this is the How the Army Runs handbook down here. Let's go look at their digital library real quick. You click right there. So this is the digital library. You click this, you'll be able to download the entire How the Army Runs handbook, 400 pages, covers in great detail how the Army runs. This is the current Army Force Management model. You'll be able to download that from that web page as well. The next web page I want to show you is the DLRO page on LinkedIn. If you go there, you'll find information. You'll also be able to see bios on your instructor, etc. So another good source of information. Finally, let me take you to the F101 page on Blackboard. Okay, you'll notice there's an advanced sheet for the block of instruction and then slides. I recommend you get the slides that the instructor will most likely post for you in the staff group area. And those are what you'll want to have at your prescribed meeting time for that block of instruction. Then you'll notice down here the readings for that block. Sometimes it'll say read, sometimes it'll say scan. We've already covered the block advance sheet. For F101, you will want to read United States Army in the Gulf War. These will open up. This will be a hyperlink. Click on it. It'll open up normally as a PDF or a Word document. You're going to read pages 6 through 29 of this F101 Reading Alpha, United States Army in the Gulf War. And again, that is for your relevant for your case study. The operational environment, emerging character of warfare. You're going to read pages 25 through 36 of that document there. This reading Charlie, this is an excerpt for how the Army runs, and you'll read that entire document. And then finally, reading Delta is an article that was initially in Military Review by one of the DLRO instructors at Fort Belvoir, Mr. James Kennedy. Okay, so you'll read that, and that will help you understand why F100 is relevant for you as a field grade officer. Okay, so that covers everything wanted to hit with respect to an overview of F100. And again, just get with your instructor if you have any additional questions. There'll be a animated PowerPoint presentation for each of your blocks. I recommend you view the PowerPoint. That'll help you focus your readings, do your readings, and then come to class prepared to discuss the questions that were in the advance sheet, and be prepared to discuss any questions you had on the slides or in your readings with your instructor or your classmates for that day. So that's all I've got for now for the F100 overview. Look forward to having a great Common Core block of instruction with you guys. Take care.